This museum is not just a museum, this is an educational center, because in this museum we're presenting 2 millennia presence of the Jews in Macedonia, but also we educate on the horrific events that took place during the Second World War and the destruction of the Jewish community during that period of time, because 98% of Macedonian Jewry was killed during the Second World War.
The whole idea in the beginning, and this is a theme that carries through, is this rebuilding of identity, the attempt to sensitize the visitor to understand that these were the victims, but before these people were victims, they were human beings. They were just like you and I.
The roots of Macedonian Jewry are ancient. The oldest synagogue outside the land of Israel is found in Skopje, which is about 50 or 60 kilometers from Skopje. It meant that the Jewish community has been there since before the Common Era. The history of Macedonian Jewry also encompasses the incredible period of time of the Jewish Renaissance in Spain, and it also deals with the incredible period of Ladino culture. We will then deal with the unique period of the Holocaust. The tobacco factory in Monopole was, in essence, a ghetto that existed for some 3 weeks.
The challenge of creating the exhibit for Monopole was profound. We had this opportunity to take advantage of the space to try to transmit some of that sense of what it was like to be there. We created this sculpture of this tornado of suitcases from above. And as you look up and you see these things, we begin to understand what the people themselves were thinking. And that's why this space becomes so incredibly powerful. And of the most dramatic elements is the train car that is completely similar to the type of train cars that took the Jews from Monopole to Treblinka. And then as we come out of the train car, we move into the world of Treblinka. We created a model so that people could understand how in such a tiny space, almost a million people can be murdered and destroyed. We recreated one of the engines, which was a former Soviet tank engine, which was the method of producing the gas that asphyxiated the Jews in the primitive gas chambers. One of the culminations of the Treblinka experience happens actually just outside of the gallery when people look up and they see the jaws of a giant shovel from a bulldozer. And then there's a picture that shows how this item was used in the Treblinka death camp. As another part of the Holocaust experience, we created a huge box. It's lit from within, so it calls the visitor to look inside and to peek into the crack, into the crevice. And then inside, we've picked just a few pictures so that one can understand the destruction that took place. And then above that is, again, one of the most iconic elements of the Holocaust, of the Shoah, which is this mound of shoes that are symbolic and iconic of the dead. We created a story of the partisan uprising in Macedonia and put together this mural, which is quite astounding on many levels.
What happens to the Jewish community of Macedonia is nothing less than a catastrophe. 7,144 Jews were sent to Treblinka, no one returned, and for more than a year, nobody knew what their fate was.
And once again, we come back to our theme of picture frames, but they're all empty. And the pictures that we've seen in the commemoration area, they're now all blurred because those people don't exist anymore. This is what we call the presence of absence. It's our attempt at this point to create an upswing, and one way to do that is to talk about those people who did manage to escape, coming back to Yugoslavia, and being allowed to emigrate, which of course they succeeded in doing, and that's a very beautiful part of the exhibition. There is a space that has been set aside to create a memorial because we have to remember that for the 7,144 victims, there were no gravestones.
So this is why this museum is important. It's a testament to what was once a fantastic community that's been wiped overnight. The message is for this young generation of kids that that situation should never happen again.
When I came into this museum, I thought I was only going to learn about the Holocaust, but I actually learned a lot about the Jewish community as a whole. It was a really enlightening experience, and I was deeply touched by all the things that they've gone through, all the discrimination that has been placed upon them.
You can, in a way, touch the past. You can touch the sense of Jewish community here. You know, it's always different to read about it, about something, and to see it. In a way, to smell it, because there is a lot of smell in this museum.
This museum wants to remind that our multi-religious and multicultural and multi-ethnic society needs to build bridges instead of walls between the community.
This museum will be a fitting tribute to those who were murdered. It will be an appropriate remembrance for the Jewish life that thrived in Macedonia but is no longer. And it is a remembrance of the past that seeks to transform the future. Teach the values of pluralism, of tolerance, of democracy, of respect for human dignity and human decency. We are remembering the past in order to deepen our ethical commitment to the future, to teach responsibility and respect.